Speaking of confidence, you also talk about practical ways to build confidence, and whether it's in, the boardroom, as an entrepreneur, day-to-day life, in any context, practical ways to build confidence. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She Talks Confidence
podcast.
Hey, welcome back. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. This is Tony, your host, and another amazing guest. As a matter of fact, today's guest does the same thing I do, so we'll try to keep the shop talk down to a minimum in terms of like what we do and our clients and all that kind of stuff. We did a little bit of that before the show, but she has such a great journey story to talk about. And then, which is great, we're going to talk about 3 super cool and important talking points in regards to confidence and women's confidence and how to get rid of imposter syndrome and all that fun stuff. So today I'd like to welcome Sheena Yap Chan. Sheena, how are you?
Hey Tony, I'm good. So nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me as a guest.
I cannot wait. So you had indicated that you wrote a book called The Tao of Self Confidence. You deal with women in regards to building self-confidence, getting over their struggles with self-doubt. And you indicated that your journey, you were just a 9-to-5 job. And what happened to get you to be in the 9-to-5 grind and finally say, I have something better to do with myself and I know I can help?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really, about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, my aunt actually passed away from a horrific accident. And, she was able to do the things that she wanted in her 50s, right? When most people are too afraid to do it, or especially in Asian culture, our elders will tell her, you're too old to do that. Don't be like, scuba diving, rock climbing, like 50-year-olds shouldn't be doing that. But she did it
Mhm.
anyway, and she's able to live life than most 20 and 30-year-olds. And so, it we still get pretty shocked as to what happened, but it also made me realize how important life was, and I just didn't want to leave this earth with regrets. Like, I was working the 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. If you love your job, I think that's great
Sure.
because not
Mhm.
everybody wants to do their own thing. Some people just are happy with that, like genuinely happy, and that's totally
Mhm.
fine. But if you're like sitting at your cubicle and you're thinking to yourself, is this it? Like, is there more to life? Can I do more? Then that's a different story. But that was a moment that made me realize, like, I really need to go out there and do my own thing, or else I'm just gonna be stuck getting mad, getting miserable, feeling regrets because I didn't do everything I ever wanted. And so that was kind of like the catalyst. Like, it didn't happen overnight, but it was the catalyst of, let's think of something differently. Let's think, what can I do?
So here's the important question. When you do get to that point and you have that epiphany and it finally is something where I don't know if it's an intuitive feeling or a gut feeling to where you finally say, I got to do something. The hard part's always where to start, right? Or how to make a plan, or do you have a plan, or how to get a plan? What was your first step out into that? What did you do?
I quit my job. I mean, I didn't have a plan.
Wow,
Like,
like
I didn't have a
kind of
plan B. I had nothing. I just said, okay, my condo was up for renewing my mortgage at the time, and instead of renewing it, I just sold my condo, and then I just said, I'm
wow.
leaving. Like, I quit. And
You
I
burn
would
the
not
ships.
advise that for every other person out there because, everyone's situation's different. I would have done things a little bit more differently, but like everything happens for a reason, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I know sometimes as women we tend to overthink, and I just went for it. And I had no clue what I was gonna do. I just said, I'm gonna go out there. I'm just gonna live life. I'll figure it out. And it's not like I knew what I was doing. I honestly didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew I didn't need to be in that situation anymore. Like everything just kind of came into place, and intuitively I said, yeah, let's do it.
Was that the only thing that was going to get you just to accept the fact that you need to figure it out?
I think so. I think just seeing that and just having something kind of just said, okay, let's do this. I know there's people out there who just want to go and just like say, I'm done, I'm quit. But it's like, you also
Mhm.
need to kind of prepare a little bit, right? Like I said, everyone's different, right? You might have kids, you might have other people to take care of, right? I don't have kids, no partners. So it's different, right? It doesn't also affect everybody else in your life.
Right, which is a very good point because again, it's contextual, right? It depends upon what your role is in anybody else's life. Now, you given the how old were you at the time? Were you in your 20s?
My 30s.
30s. Okay, so you're in your 30s, which is still young. I mean, take it from
Yeah,
me. I'm like
like, when
twice
that
twice
happened, I
that
was
age,
in my
right? Yeah,
30s,
yeah, you're
yeah.
right. Yeah, you are right. And in 20s and 30s, and a lot of women think that they're in their 30s. Oh, they should know what's going on. They should have their path. They should either be married or have a job. No, 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 no. It all varies by person, and your path is. But the thing is that when you do realize that you need to make a change, a lot of women just kind of stay in the I don't know what to do, and then they don't do anything. When you did that, and you said, "Ma, forget it. I'm no mortgage, all that." What was the first thing after that that you did?
I decided to, like, live in Hawaii for 2 winters because I just wanted to live somewhere different, especially living in Toronto. Winters here are brutal. I wanted to go somewhere warm. I just said one night in a very, very cold night in Toronto, I said, I need to live somewhere different." And out of nowhere, Hawaii just popped up. I think part of the
Oh,
reason why I went to Hawaii too was to learn to enjoy my own company, like
mm,
being able to go out by myself to eat or going to the beach by myself. I think that's really important. We take time to enjoy our own company because sometimes, our biggest enemy is ourselves. We're always
oh
so
yes.
judgmental on ourselves, and learning to really love unconditionally ourselves is so important. So that,
Mm,
and I guess learning to heal and be able to see things from a different perspective. I mean, I come from a culture where we're always craving for stability and
mhm.
not embracing the unknown. And of course, fearing the unknown is scary for anybody, right? Regardless of
Oh yeah.
culture, regardless of gender. And it also taught me how to embrace that uncertainty, right? And knowing that there's so many things you could do, right? Like so many doors have opened because sometimes we feel like when one door closes, it's the end of the world, but when one
Mhm.
door closes, another one opens. So you just never know what happened. But yeah, I still didn't really have a plan. Like, part of me was still a little bit scared. Like, I can't believe I just did this. What did I do? Should I go back to getting a job? Like, what am I doing with my life? And yes, sometimes we get lost in our 30s, sometimes in our 40s, 50s, which is totally fine because
Mhm.
everyone's in a different journey. But I think sometimes you have to get lost to really find what you really wanted to do. It was definitely a shock to my parents, of course, because their definition of success was different from mine. And I get it,
Uh,
people move to, America, Canada to, live that American dream, or, work the 9 to 5 and work till you retire. But that's not everybody's dream. And they came to this country to give us better opportunities. Well, better opportunities doesn't always mean having a good job. Better opportunities is being your own boss, doing things that are out of the norm, that are unconventional. And so I wanted to take that chance even though I didn't know what that looked like. And
mhm.
I was still trying to figure that out as I did all that stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like confidence to me. It sounds like a trust in yourself and trust in your intuition that feeling, and that even that feeling that's contradictory or contradicts all the societal or the cultural stuff that's around you. And most importantly, the expectations of your family, which is such a
Yes.
strong force in a lot of women. And that's where, the perfectionism stuff comes in, the overthinking stuff comes in, and you don't trust yourself, and then it's about disappointing people, especially in strong cultures. Was that a slow burn in you until it finally you couldn't take it anymore, or was that one of those things where you woke up one day and said, "Oh, I got to do something different"?
Yeah, it was basically from my aunt's death that made it was the catalyst. I
It
mean, it didn't
was.
happen
Okay.
overnight, but I just started to figure out what I wanna do, like, when is the right time? And I guess at that
Mhm.
time, whatever that time I said, "I'm gonna quit," it just felt right, no explanation, kinda just did it. Was it a little fast and, like, unprepared? Definitely.
You could say impulsive, but I don't think it was impulsive.
Impulsive, that's
I
it. I
mean,
was like, I'm trying to
right?
find the word it was a little bit impulsive on my end. I may have done things a little bit more different, but everything, like I said, everything happens for a reason. I think
Yeah.
we're all in our
Yeah.
journeys for a reason, and back then, I would never think of things like that. Like, when situations happen, I'm always like, "What is the lesson? What's the blessing? I'm in this
Yeah.
situation for a reason, and I'm gonna find out." Even if it's frustrating or you don't even know what the outcome looks like, or you think, "This is not how it's supposed to pan out," but everything will fall into place and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, I get now why I had to be in this situation."
The innate trust. You have to have that. It's not like you can go along without that and say, okay, you're not going to wing it, but I don't know. I'm not sure. You can't, you really
Yeah,
have to bear down and have that foundational trust in yourself to do that. So, all that
yeah.
being said, how did you get to be what I do? How did you get to be a coach? self confidence, work with women, work with the populations?
Yeah, I mean, it's really started with my podcast. So I have a podcast as well called the Tao of Self Confidence. I've interviewed
Mhm.
over 800 women on that topic of confidence. And so I learned a lot just by interviewing so many women and the similarities we go through. And as much as I love what I've done with my podcast, I also wanted to branch out. So that's when I started doing writing books, speaking, training, things like that. And, I never ever thought I would ever write a book for a top publisher, right? Not just even one book, two books. So when they approached me 2 years ago to write a book, I almost said no because I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person about this, but we can definitely share more about that. I'm glad I was able to do it and realize like anything is really possible, especially in traditional publishing. You don't see that many Asian women authors or just in that space. And so it's important to take up space because, especially growing up in North America, I never had representation growing up. So I always felt
Mhm.
ashamed of myself, my own culture, the way I look, longing for blonde hair and blue eyes to feel more beautiful. And I told myself I never want current and future generations to go through what I went through. I want them to see these amazing Asian women who are breaking barriers, making history, doing things differently to show them what's possible.
That's fantastic motivation for that. Just incredible. Just to be a solid representative for that, a beacon, for that. That was that in your mind with your culture, Asian not being represented when the publishing opportunity came about?
Yeah, I mean, I did talk about, the things like Asian women go through because there wasn't really a lot of books that talked about that. And of course, just
Mhm.
because I talk about it doesn't mean other cultures can't relate to it. Like, they were like, I didn't know
Mhm.
your culture goes through that. Our culture goes through that too. So then now we have a commonality because we have similar traditions that we follow that hurt us or that we can connect with. And
Yeah.
I think it was really important to have a book that highlighted Asian women, talking about the contributions, talking about the things we go through, how we can move forward. Because when I was doing my research, I just couldn't find anything out there. And so I realized I guess I had to be that person.
Yeah,
And
that's when you know you're the trailblazer and you're helping with that niche. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
When they first got to you and said contacted you and asked you to do it, and you're like, I don't know. What was the voice saying? Well, where was the I
Oh,
don't know coming from?
major imposter syndrome, right? Like major imposter syndrome. Because I was like, who am I to talk about leadership or even write about leadership? Like, I have no clue what that looks like. And I'm like, there's so many other amazing women, especially Asian women out there who are doing like way more stuff than me. So I was like, I don't know if I'm the right candidate. Like, why would they want to ask me to write about leadership when I don't even know what that looks like? And so I'm just glad I have like a really great support system who encouraged me to write it. They're like, no, you need to write it. And she was right because I was talking about representation and putting and being out there. And if I don't do this, I'm just a huge hypocrite and I'm doing a disservice. So it's really great to have a support system to kind of remind you that you can make this happen and there's like a cheering squad for you. And so that helped me say yes. I didn't have a full manuscript. I just had an outline. I had to write in less than 3 months and
Wow,
I made
really?
it happen because I had no choice.
Wow. Right? That
Yeah.
sometimes that's better when your
Yes.
feet are to the fire and you're like, all right, got to make it happen.
Yes.
Wow, that's
So,
great.
and I've never written a book my whole life. When I migrated from
Oh, okay.
the Philippines to Toronto, I had to take English classes, because I couldn't put sentences together. Like every time I would talk, people are like, "What are you saying? You don't make sense. That sentence doesn't make any sense." So I had to take English classes so I could speak properly.
Wow.
And so, I always want people to realize like just because you feel like you have a limitation, you don't, right? Like you can definitely go out there and make things happen regardless of any circumstance.
It's taking you out of the comparison mode and into the, well, this is what I got and this is where I want to go. And so I got to carve my own path.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole point is it's not a race. It's just you on your own journey, doing like you did, taking English classes because that's what you needed to do at the time. And it's about having that perspective versus, oh, this is what they're doing, or oh, they're so much further along than I am. And really having almost a victim mentality when it comes to that. Right.
Yeah.
Which is just that doesn't work for anybody. So you have three talking points that I'd love for you to share your thoughts on. The first
Yeah.
one is how sharing our stories can break down barriers and uplift others.
Being able to interview over 800 women on my podcast really made me realize the importance of sharing our stories because A lot of people think vulnerability is our weakness when it's our greatest strength, right?
Hmm.
Being more
Oh
vulnerable,
yeah.
being more authentic is so needed in this world, especially like social media can be good and social media can be bad, right? We see the perfect filtered photos, living that perfect life, not realizing behind closed doors what's happening. So, being able to share our struggles, how we were able to overcome them to move forward, really helps us realize what's really possible. One of
Hmm.
my favorite stories is Ki Hui Kwan, who, you know, he was in Goonies and Indiana Jones, and then he fell off the face of the earth because back then there wasn't a lot of roles for Asian people in Hollywood. For over 20 years, he just worked behind the cameras, and then he saw Crazy Rich Asians, got FOMO, and wanted to get back into acting. And he
Hmm.
was in Everything Everywhere All at Once. In fact, they filmed that movie at the heart of the lockdown. Like just right after they were done, it was lockdown. And he was talking about how he didn't even make enough money to get insurance, like health insurance, because I think in America you have to make a certain amount or something. I live in Canada, so
Yeah.
yeah, we have, we have,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we have
Let don't rub it in. Don't rub it in.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The insurance down here is ridiculous.
So he basically asked his agent, "Was I at least good in the movie?" And
Hmm.
his agent said yes. And then it came out, I think 2 years ago, or yeah, I think 2 years ago it came out. Did very well. He won his first Oscar, like he won all kinds of awards, and then it revived his career. So being able
Hmm.
to hear a story like that for me is so inspiring because I understand his struggle. I understand that uncertainty, like, oh, I don't know when my next paycheck's coming, or oh, I don't know if what I did was a big mistake, but everything
Yeah,
worked out in the end. And sometimes
yeah.
we're put in the situation to tell that story to show others we all go through struggle. Being able to forge your own path isn't easy. If it was, everyone would be doing it.
There's a recent study that I saw that shows that most of the people that are, wealthy or very successful, luck has a lot to do with it. And you can make your own luck to a certain extent, but again, by chance, some people just get lucky. That's just kind of what it is, and it has nothing to do with them being better or anything like that. So comparing yourself to any of those situations is ridiculous. And the other thing is that I want to bring up that you had mentioned was the fact that if you are an overthinker, which we are together, if you
I
are a
am.
perfectionist, oh, I am 100, and I'm a recovering perfectionist too, and it's
I mean, I am
brutal.
as well.
I say recovering, but it's recovering minute to minute, right? I mean, that's kind of a perfectionist mindset. When you have that perfectionist and that overthinking mindset, you think, or there's this expectation that every solution or every action that you take has to be the right action to get to where you need to be or where you should be.
Yeah.
Whereas that's absolutely incorrect. Every action is just an action to where you need to get to be. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It just has to be an action based upon what you feel as though is your next step. And that's where the focus needs to be, on the next step. Now, it may take you sideways or it may take you back a couple steps, but the point is, at least now you know. And that's like the bane of a perfectionist existence, is the fact that they go through and they make these mistakes and they're like, oh my God, see, that proves it. And then all of a sudden your whole life crashes, right? Because of this one mistake that you made, because you put all your eggs in that basket of what you're doing right now. And if you don't make every single thing correct, then everything's a disaster. And you curl up in a ball and you spin an ashtray in the corner. Such a good point that you had made, because that has zero to do with it, and it's a matter of the individual journey, and you have to have that trust in yourself to be able to do that and to be able to move forward. Nobody's going to give that to you. We have clients, and we've had clients for a long time, and a lot of clients, and you've talked to a ton of women about this. Our job is not to convince you, because we can't. I mean, we can just put out information and have interesting stories that they can resonate with, but it has to be the person's choice to move forward and do things, and to trust the fact that they actually have that intuitive feeling, or they have that intuitive self-confidence, the intuitive true confidence to be able to move forward. So that's, which is, you know, it's so tough sitting across, I don't know about you, but it's so tough sitting across from a client that is radiating power, and they're sitting there going,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I go, seriously? Really? Do you not see this? You try to hold up a mirror to them, but that's our job. I try to hold up a mirror to them. So, speaking of confidence, you also talk about practical ways to build confidence, and whether it's in, the boardroom, as an entrepreneur, day-to-day life, in any context, practical ways to build confidence. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the most practical way to build confidence is to just take it step by step. A lot of people, when they want to boost their confidence, they want to take big leaps. And nothing's wrong with that, but sometimes you take that big leap and you don't get the result that you want. It actually brings your confidence even lower. So, just having small, actionable daily steps is what really yields the big results. So, I always use an example of writing a book because a lot of people want to write a book, but then they're like, oh my God, I want to write a book, but this is so hard. This kind of looks like, where am I going to find the time to do this? Such a big, like, task to do. And so I always tell them, if you really want to write a book, just be committed to writing a day, 1 page a day for a year straight. Because by the end of the year, you'll have one big book or two small books, right?
Mm,
I was able to interview over 800 women because I didn't do it overnight. That was a span of like almost 10 years because
mm,
I
mm.
just said one woman at a time, one woman at a time, and it and landed to 800, over 800 women. So just taking the small actionable daily steps, something that you can actually like do, right? That's practical. Like 1 page a day is practical. And if it's not practical then for you, then do 5 words. I don't You have to do what works for you, of course, right? Same thing like in fitness, right? If you want to start running a marathon, you start with 1 kilometer or mile, and then you
Yeah.
slowly increase that to reach the 42 miles that you run for a full marathon. So
Mhm.
that's how I do it. And also being able to celebrate our achievements because I think that's so important. A lot of people always want to celebrate it when they hit the goal, but really we should celebrate that we even took action because that first step is the hardest step ever. And so if you're able to overcome that, like you won, celebrate it and you'll figure it out as we go. So I think that's the most practical thing to do. Just do small daily actionable steps, something that you can do. Even like one thing I read at an article was, I don't know if it's called low self-confidence, but it's like low risk self-confidence, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's the same thing, like, just do it,
Mhm.
in little bits to build your confidence slowly, and then in the end, it's gonna just, like, compound and you become more confident.
Mhm. Yeah, create a small barrier to entry, right? I mean, people look at the because I wrote a book too, and I I had a very strange motivational force behind mine. I said, I can only have a drink if I write my book. Which, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
it probably turned out better that I had a couple drinks when I was writing the book. But that was my whole thing. So I would sit down and I would write, and I just have I have a glass of wine. I kind of connected that to being a reward to do that. And I did the same thing. I just want to do a couple pages, just whatever's on my mind or whatever can generate at the time. And it's that there's a thing out there called 10-minute rule. Have you ever heard of that? I mean, somebody made that up, but it basically it's just commit to 10 minutes to do something. 10 minutes. That's it. Anybody can do anything for 10 minutes, right? So if you commit to 10 minutes, what happens? Well, what happens is that after that 10 minutes, either you're like, okay, I'm good. I got my 10 minutes in, or you're like at minute 9 and you're like, I'm going to keep rolling. And then, then you're in it for, an hour or two. Either way, it works because you're committing to something and you're sticking to it. And then you celebrate that. Your third point that you talked about was, and we touched on this a little earlier, but it was strategies to move past imposter syndrome and show up authentically, even when it feels uncomfortable, which is a very good point in this.
I think sometimes we go through imposter syndrome because I also see it as a sign of growth. We always evolve as humans and we're always trying to take it to the next level. Sometimes I just see that as a sign to like say, okay, I have to move forward. I have to do something because this is kind of like a sign for me to say like I'm ready to move on to the next. Because if you're not asking those questions, you there's no growth. You're not going to build that
Right.
confidence and the strength. So it's
Mhm.
important to just see that as a good thing versus as a bad thing.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned before, having a support system is really important because they're going to remind you of your greatness, how good you are, that you're capable, and they're cheering you on. And then even just having a list of things you've accomplished before, right? Sometimes we feel like we're not good enough because we feel like we didn't accomplish anything. Meanwhile, you have a whole list of stuff that you've accomplished and you forgot about it. And so just having that list can kind of help you move past that, right? I actually have a whole chapter on imposter syndrome in my upcoming book, like the different
Mm.
types to overcome them. But these are some of the things you can start using right now.
Those are such great tools. Isn't it amazing that a lot of people default to the movie that runs in their head, that it's the stuff that they didn't do or the stuff that they didn't accomplish or the stuff that is less than, whatever their expectation is, instead of really reframing things and shifting your perspective just a little bit and running the same movie that's also true, that's the counter to that, to where it's the things that you did succeed in and the things that you did do well and the things that you did contribute to society or to your family. The value that you provide, not only to yourself, but other people. It's insane that people would just default to the crappy movie instead of the something. And again, it's not about just seeing things positively, which I think a lot of people, that's a big backlash on therapy and coaching, is, oh, just see things, but it's not about that. It's about gaining a level of perspective, don't you think? I mean, because it's both true. I mean, the reality is, either both sides. But it's, you could go back to every major philosopher or psychologist or logotherapy or Viktor Frankl, and it's all about shifting perspective and seeing things for really what they are and accepting the good and the bad, and then moving forward based upon all of the information and what you really want to create. This is a very selfish question, because I'm very interested in this. You had the opportunity to speak with 800 women, which is a huge population. What's the top takeaway, or the top 2-3 takeaways that you got from all of those women regarding self confidence? Either how to get it or how to find it when you need it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I noticed was like, as women, um, sometimes when we hit a boiling point, we just figure, that boiling point is that moment where we're like, something needs to change. I need to do something different so that I'm not in this situation again. So being able to see that, being able to see the women were grateful and practicing self-love. And when I mean practicing self-love, like unconditional, the good, bad, and the ugly. And then being able to hear what they struggled with was really important, especially for myself, because I used to feel like I'm the only one who dealt with this, not realizing we all do, and it's just we never talk about it. So knowing it's just part of the journey and we can move forward, makes it even less like stressful, or like thinking that we have to show up as a perfect person.
I love that. I mean, it's so true. It's boils it down to really the true essence of really what it's all about. And as simple as it sounds, it's really hard for some women for some men and women, but for the population that we work with, some women to deal with that or to accept that for what it is. So, Sheena, thank you so much. That was awesome. I could rattle off and like talk about this for hours and hours, because this is true to my heart, same as yours. So I just love this. In regards to getting a hold of you, getting a hold of your book, when's your new book coming out? Let's kind of throw out some data or some information on that.
Yeah, for sure. So you can connect with me on my website, sheenayapchan.com, or you can go to sheenayapchan.com/links. All my social media is there. You can order the Tao of Self Confidence. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Indigo, and every book retailer worldwide. My upcoming book, Bridging the Confidence Gap: How Empowered Women Change the World, is available for pre-order on the same book retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Indigo. And if you upload your copy of the receipt, I also have some awesome pre-order bonuses. So just make sure you can go through the links that I provided. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. And on my site too, I also have a free quiz to take that will tell you your self confidence personality. But if you forgot anything I mentioned, just Google my name, Sheena Yap Chan. I'm the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
I was going to say it's such a great name because nobody has it, right? And the second thing is
Yeah.
is that if somebody can't find you, they have a serious internet problem,
Yeah.
basically, because you're everywhere. But that's awesome. They can find you everywhere and all your information. That's great. So and in regards to mine, mine's at tonydufresne.com. But if you can't spell it, I mean, at least you can spell Sheena Yap Chan. Nobody can spell Dufresne. So I had to do theconfidencedoc.com for that. And then I have a new masterclass. That's an hour-long video masterclass on toxic relationships, because those are super fun, right? If you want to kind of get to the understanding of if you are in one, or if you are, how to get out the right way, then I have that masterclass on theconfidencedoc.store. And I also have a little thing about gaslighting, how to spot it, and then if it does happen to you, what to say to disarm it, because gaslighting is also super fun when that happens to you. And so I have that on there as well. And my book is Surrounded by Idiots. Ah, yes, the old Surrounded by Idiots, and that's been available 6 years now, and that's on Amazon, and you can find it if you have any problem finding it. Just let me know. It's on Amazon. So hope things are good, and we will talk to you later. Thank you, Sheena. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me.